What's going on, guys? Mike here from the Mac Effect, your host. Like always, thanking you guys for tuning in. Thanking you guys for always showing love and support to the channel. I'm always trying to figure out good conversations, good interviews to have for you guys. And today is no exception. We have another great episode planned for you guys ahead of time. So when I asked this guest to come over, I was a little bit hesitant, not in the sense of like I wasn't sure whether to bring him over or not, but because of what God is doing, of how he's expanding me, how he's kind of getting shyness away from me. And it's like, bro, throw your net out there. There's so many great stories, I don't know. I just love hearing other people's walk of life because it gives me perspective that it's like, dude, we all have it hard one way or another. But at the end of the day, there's this positivity of light at the end of the tunnel, which in my case, in our case, it's God. You know, I always tell you guys, I don't push Christianity. I don't push any other religion on you guys. I simply share what I feel moves, what helps me. And if it helps you and benefits you, glory to God. And if it doesn't, let's find your resources. Let's find your ways. It's not about fighting religion versus religion, because on top of that, as a matter of fact, the guests that I'm here, we're not even from the same religion, if you put that. But at the end of the day, we are in a place of we want to devote our lives to God. That's the beautiful thing about it. So with that being said, with that long introduction, I want to welcome you guys, a good friend of mine, Tommy. Tommy, nice. Thank you for coming, man.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate you being here. So, Tommy, a lot of you guys don't know this about Tommy, but Tommy him and his wife own a restaurant near our home. It's called Monarch 9. It's been a blessing of a restaurant, Tommy. As you know, we've been regulars. Since we moved in, we've been there several times. Love the pho. It's been amazing. And as we've been there, we didn't know each other. But seeing our faces consistently, we eventually started becoming close friends with your wife and then eventually with you. And before you know it, we started having like just these beautiful conversations. And then you started kind of just opening up to me with things of your life that I said, hey, Tommy, would really love to bring you on board to the Mac Effect. And you were like, let's do it, you know, and it's so much. But with all this being said, Tommy, and we're going to let them know about the business side of everything. But one thing that I always do when I begin my interviews with the guests is I ask them a little bit about their background. Tommy, where did you grow up? Where was your upbringing? That way it gives us a little bit of understanding of like, you know, who Tommy is on the inside.
Sure. So my parents came from Vietnam. So when the war ended, they were sponsored by a Mormon family in Utah. So they actually came to America, lived with this family for, I believe, a few months or maybe a year or so until my dad got a job, got on his feet. Shortly, maybe a couple years after that, I was born. So I was born in Utah. I was there till I was 8 years old. And then we moved to California. So lived in my grandma's house. My whole family shared a one bedroom in one of my aunt's rooms. She was away to college. So my entire family stayed in her room for about a year. And then we moved to Orange County. Okay. I grew up in pretty rough. It's called the Slater Slums. It's a rough area of Huntington Beach. Okay. And I grew up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many siblings are you in your family?
So I have one older brother and one younger sister.
One older brother, one younger sister. You're the one in the middle.
Yep.
Okay, nice. And then are your parents alive still?
No. So, yeah, yes and no. So my mom she's doing great. My dad, he passed away when I was 12. So he had leukemia. Okay. That's why we moved from Utah to California, because the doctors in the hospital never had a case of leukemia. Mm-hmm. And they said that, he'll get better care, in California. Yeah. And also, they also said he probably had like a year or two to live. Okay. So we moved to California because that's where his his parents were, my grandparents, and then his brothers and sisters all lived in California. So that's why we moved here.
Got it.
Yeah.
How did the passing of your father affect you?
Oh man, it was rough. Like that was a thing. Like it completely crushed me, and it basically changed my whole course of life.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess in a good way or a bad way. You know, in a lot of people's eyes, you can say it sent me in the wrong path, but I now believe that path was the right path for me. I had to go through that path to get where I am today.
To end up where you're at, which is which is the reason why I wanted to bring you, Tommy, because I want to share with you guys. I've always been open with you guys. I've always been vulnerable with you guys, letting you guys know it's all about being transparent. It's all about being honest. And so Tommy has a past. It does not mean that's what he's living now in the future. Just the same way I've made mistakes in the past, it does not mean that's who I am now. So the reason why I brought you, Tommy, was because, well, I want to kind of go into that because I understand in this world, people can talk about our past and try to make us feel ashamed of it. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it right now where you were like, you know what? You know, it's good or bad depending on whose eyes see it or whatever. But for you, it was like, at the end of the day, God worked it for its good because you ended up in a place that you're in now. Mm-hmm. So I know right now you look at your past and you're like, I wouldn't change a thing. But it was a pretty tough past. Yeah, it was a pretty tough past. You were sharing with me some stuff that, you know, in the area that you're saying that's shady, you know, I would think, I grew up in Compton. So I'm like, well, things can get shadier than Compton. But, you know, what was happening in those areas that you were in? Like, what groups were you eventually kind of finding yourself in?
Before my dad passed away, I grew up in Utah, and I got into a lot of fights because I was basically me, my brother, my sister, and then like two other people were the only non-white people at the school. Okay. And you have to understand, back then in the 80s, like the Vietnam War ended in 75, I believe. So, and there was a lot of people that died, right? So there was a ton of Vietnam War movies, so there's a lot of racism, right? Wow. A lot of racism. So I'm sure a lot of these kids I went to school with, maybe their dad died in the war, maybe their uncle. So I'm sure their family members were racist against the Vietnamese people and taught them. Yeah. So I was picked on or whatever, but I was a tough kid. So I would get into fights like all the time. And it was never fair. Like I would get jumped, but I held my own. And I think that was like I've always had that chip on my shoulder. Obviously, Vietnamese people were smaller. So I was always like the smaller kid.
Yeah, correct.
And they would think that they could pick on me, but I was tough. I was tough as nails. Like I would take a beating and then just they would like regret it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I believe it. Yeah. I believe right now when you were walking in, when you were coming, I'm like, man, he's fit. Like he's like, he could be a little, I don't want to say you're short, but you're on the smaller side.
You could say it.
You're on the smaller side, but you're built, man. And I do want to touch a little bit about your health journey because I saw you have your own YouTube channel. Yeah. You have your own platform where you're growing. It's more on the bikes and, you know, off road riding and things like of that nature. But you also had a health journey. But before we touch those bases, so you would get into fights. Yeah. You would, from the sounds of it, you would kind of want to avoid them. But you also got to a point where you're like, all right, bro, as much as I try to avoid, 100%. People come at me, so I have to stand up for myself.
100%. I never started a fight. However, you know, I think
you're like, I would end them though.
Yeah, I enjoyed like a bully trying to come at me because I loved teaching somebody a lesson, and I think it was a trigger for me, and it still is. Like there was, you know, times as I got older, got my life together, where, you know, on the golf course of all places, things would happen. And these old dudes like had no idea. And you know, I would, you know, because there's a lot of etiquette in golf, and I would hit up on them or whatever accidentally. I would drive up and apologize, and then they would mouth off. And then I would, again, just, bro, I just apologize to you. And they keep mouthing off, and then I would lose it. And then I would get in their face, and then it would just, at that moment, it would just end. You know, they've probably never been in a fight in their life, you know?
Yeah, I get it.
So I never, so it's a thing I'm way better at now as a dad, as an adult, to control my anger.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
As when I was younger, like, no.
Yeah. And you're learning this, right? So like, that's the reason why I love this, because, you know, as men, let's call it what it is. A lot of men have anger issues, anger problems. It's just the truth. I just don't like when people try to hide and say, no, you don't know this. It doesn't mean it always has to resort with violence, but men tend to just get more upset, more aggressive very quickly, more quicklier than women.
Yep.
So it's a thing that, you know, you were working on. You lost your father. So that person that would, when you would come home, that should have been there to tell you, son, that's not the way we're going to conduct ourselves, or it's okay to defend yourself, whatever, right? That person wasn't there. So at some point, Tommy was like, I need to look for love in places that I'm lacking. Like, I need it. I need to feel welcomed and stuff. Is that kind of something that you were going through, where you felt like, man, I just need to start finding like a family, a group for myself?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was that I was, I know a lot of gang bangers, that's what they find in gangs. I think for me, after my dad died, I just really didn't give an F. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just pushed God away. And
you knew about God though, like your mom or your dad would try to instill God in you.
Yeah. So,
but you pushed them away.
Yeah. So just to give a little context to your audience and the extreme that I went with my relationship with God, and I think what I'm hoping sharing my story will kind of help people see that God is always there, and it's whether you want to accept God or not. And to me, when I say God, it's like God to me like is all religions. Like we call God, we all have the same God.
Yeah.
We just call that God something different, whether He is God, Jesus Christ, or God, Allah, or Buddha, right? To me, God is the Almighty. So, but as a kid, when my dad, you know, when growing up, we weren't, I wouldn't say that really religious in the family. And then my dad always had respect for the Mormons, obviously. They would come knock on the door, so he would let them in. Whereas a lot of people, when Mormons come knocking, they would pretend like you're not home. But my dad, he had so much love for them because they took him in. So, you know, we had Mormons come to the house and stuff like that. But we were not Mormon. We grew up Catholic. My family went to church maybe twice a month, or even maybe once a month. But it was when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, with leukemia. That is when we became more religious, right? So we moved, we found out that it was terminal. We moved to California to live with my grandma and grandfather, who are very, very religious, right? So when we moved in there, we lived in and it's like a small 3-bedroom home, but my family, me, my brother, my sister, my mom and dad lived in shared a bedroom. So me and my brother slept on the ground, and my mom, my dad, and my sister slept in the bed. But when I grew up in Utah, dirt poor. I mean, we didn't have a bedroom either. Me and my brother slept in the living room, you know? So, kind of used to that. We had my uncle and aunt and his 2 kids live with us in the second bedroom. So I was always kind of used to that.
So good.
But my grandma was very religious, and I think she told my dad knew the way that she was. So moving to California, when we had we packed everything up in Utah, U-Haul, moved from Utah to California. When we got to California, most of my clothes were gone. All my toys were gone. And I think my dad threw them away. Wow. Because back then I was like I wanted to be like a break dancer and stuff like that. So I had like bandanas and all these things, and he got rid of all that stuff.
Wow.
Because I think he knew how my grandma was. Got rid of all of her toys because she was very strict, very religious. We weren't allowed to watch certain shows on TV. Like, wow. Yeah. So, and we prayed every night. And we prayed we did the rosary in French, and we prayed in Vietnamese and in English. So it was a long prayer every night with my grandma. And I wouldn't say I hated it, but I didn't love it. But I miss it so much now, you know. And it's something I do now with my family. But
like every human, we don't value what we have until it's gone.
Yeah.
So then now you're just like, dude, what I used to take for granted, I wish I can do one more time.
I had a really special relationship with my grandma. I think like she knew that my brother was the oldest male. So he had a ton of love and attention from my mom and dad. He was the straight A student. My sister was the baby girl. And of course, so she got a lot of love and attention. I was the middle child. So I was just there, and I was the one always getting into fights at school, always getting into trouble. So my grandma, like, she gave me a lot of love. And then so when we lived in Santa Barbara, my grandma enrolled us into catechism, which is first communion, to get our first communion in Catholic church. So, you know, when I was younger, and this is when I was like 8, 9 years old when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a 3-year program to get my first communion. So when I first started, you know, I asked had my dad explain to me what a prayer was, because, you know, he would go to church, and he wouldn't allow us to eat. We weren't allowed to eat before church, you know. So I'll be hungry, and then they would get the bread, and I wanted the bread, right? And he's like, you can't have the bread like until you get your first communion. And then
wow.
Why do you like kneel and close your eyes after you eat it, you know? And he would explain a prayer to me. And the best way that he could explain a prayer to me was a wish. Like, you're asking God for a wish from God. And once you get your first communion, your first prayer is going to be a very special prayer, and it's going to come true. So when they enrolled me in first communion, I was so excited because I knew that my first prayer, I felt 100% certain that it would come true. And my first prayer would be for a cure for my dad.
Wow.
You know? So, you know, when we were going to first communion or catechism school in Santa Barbara, we were there for about a year. I think my mom could handle living there with my grandma. Like, I love my grandma to death, but I think she was probably not the best mother-in-law to my mom. Very demanding. And I think also she was overbearing on my father. And I totally get now, because if my kid, my son or my daughter, had cancer and only had a couple of years to live, I would just be, you know, overbearing and be at my kids' beck and call. So I think my mom felt like my grandma was taking her role as the wife. You know what I mean? Like, just like
overstepping boundaries.
Yeah, like making breakfast, making lunch for my dad, like being at my dad's beck and call. And, you know, and so I don't think my mom enjoyed living there. So eventually we found a little and my dad had a lot of friends in California, in Orange County. And by the way, my dad was a leader in Utah. He created the Vietnamese Association of Utah. He was a president. And basically what he did was, he was a coal miner. That was his job. But what he did on the side was he had like kind of, I guess, a nonprofit organization, but it wasn't a real thing. It was just he helped people. So one of the jobs that he did when he was in Utah on the side was he was a translator. So because he knew how to speak English, read English, and read and speak Vietnamese. So a lot of Vietnamese people didn't read or write English, but he was educated. So he worked with a lot with the courts and did a lot of help with the paperwork of helping people come to the country. And eventually he learned how to fill out the paperwork himself, and he would do it because it was very expensive to hire an attorney to do it. So he would do it for free for people, and he would never take money. And I remember as a kid, we were super poor, and, you know, I would want like a Hot Wheel. At the time, they were like 75 cents or 95 cents, whatever. It was under $1. I remember that. And he would just say we didn't have enough money to buy a Hot Wheel, you know. But, you know, these families would like fight with him about taking money. He would not. And I remember there would be a time where they would try to give him money with throwaway, or we were saying goodbye in the car, and he would have the window like rolled up, and it would like cracked, and they would speak.
Slide
they
it
would
in there.
Try to throw money through the window, and then he would stop the car, take the money, and then throw it out. And I would I never understood why you would not take money, but you wouldn't buy me a Hot Wheel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that he helped come to America and their families, a lot of Vietnamese migrated to Utah, to Orange County, Little Saigon in Westminster. So it is, you know, a fun fact, Little Saigon or Westminster Garden Grove, this little pocket in Orange County, has the most Vietnamese population outside of Vietnam in the world. So there's a lot of Vietnamese out there.
Yeah.
So that's how we came to Orange County.
Yeah.
And we found,
and because your dad was known, he was pretty popular, so he had his connections and friends.
Yeah.
Not for like it's not like he did it on purpose, but his connections were there because of the people that he would help.
Yeah, they got him a job. Like he found work. So, you know, when he became sick, he couldn't work. So he couldn't be a coal miner anymore. So that's why he moved to live with my grandma. I don't think my dad liked being out of work either. Yeah. So he found work at a print shop. There was a print shop in Westminster. That's where he worked. So that's how we ended up. We lived in a ghetto apartment. It was 2-bedroom. Me and my brother shared a room, and this was the first time I had a room, and
quote unquote to yourself, even though you were sharing it.
Sharing with my brother. And this is pretty crazy. But our mattress, literally, my dad got it from the dumpster. So somebody from the apartment threw away their mattress. Because with the first, like, maybe 2 months, we were sleeping on the ground, which was normal to us. Like, we slept on the ground, like, most of our life, you know? And in Vietnam, people sleep on the ground. So to my mom and dad, it wasn't like, oh, I'm such a bad parent, I'm not providing a mattress. Like, it wasn't a big deal to them either,
I get
you know? So, and I remember, like, I was stoked. Like, I got a mattress. But I guess somebody from the neighborhood saw my dad pull that mattress from the dumpster. So it was, the apartment that has.
It was like on the side
or
whatever.
It was on the side,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I don't remember because I didn't really care. I'm pretty sure it wasn't all dirty and messed up, but it was used, right? Somebody saw it, and I guess that went around. And I remember, being in this neighborhood, and one of the kids made fun of us that our mattress came from the trash, and I whooped his ass. So yeah, so I got a pretty bad reputation. People didn't want to mess with me because that kid was he was the bully of the apartment.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
So people were scared of him, and I just jacked him up. And then I became like me and my brother. And since he was my older brother, like everybody's scared of.
Don't mess with them.
Yeah, don't mess with these guys. And we got in a lot of fights. And
which one of the reasons why, sorry to cut you off, but one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you and hear your story, like hearing all this, I didn't know anything about this before. So when we finally spoke a little bit and I kind of started hearing your story, I was so shocked, Tommy, because I met you in the restaurant. Mm-hmm. I see your lovely wife. I see your car. You own a business. The way you're dressed, the way you're well taken care of physically. Like, I'm like, man, this guy he's well put together. Like, he has no idea what life struggles are. and I know how it gets that chuckle out of you because it's like, that's how much God, and look, I'm getting chills, but it's the truth, because that's how much God has changed your life to a positive. Because when you started telling me, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. I had no idea. And you're like, no, yes. And it's just, for me, it's so beautiful because you're telling me this story, and I'm like, man, God, you're so good. Like, from the floor to a dirty used mattress to the life that you have now. And I'm happy for you. And I'm just like, God, you're so good. Like, you find ways for people, even like when we're dumb and naive and we think we know better because we're young. And I'm sure as life has matured you and you've realized, like, dude, there's so much more better when you just listen to God than listen to yourself. Because back then you weren't listening to God. Oh. You were just doing whatever Tommy wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, when I was going through catechism, I had, when we moved to Utah, my dad, kept me enrolled into catechism. So we went to a different school here. That was in Huntington Beach. It was every Wednesday night. And, my dad was in and out of the hospital at this point. So I had like 2 years left, and I would remember praying to God every night. And my mom couldn't really drive me to catechism every Wednesday night. So I rode my bike there, even in the rain. And I remember my teacher, I would come in there soaking wet, and she was like, "Oh my God, did you just ride your bike here?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Give me, I'll pick you up before school." And I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I enjoy it. I just didn't want her to see where I lived because I was so ashamed. Wow. Because I grew up in, like, it was in a ghetto apartment, And then this is like the nice part of Huntington Beach where the church was, and all these kids, all these rich kids. I liked going to this catechism school because nobody knew me there. Because at my school, I had this reputation. I was the bad boy. Got in a lot of fights. Nobody effed with Tommy. You know what I mean? But here, I could just...
You felt equal.
Yeah. I was just one of them.
Man, that's crazy.
I was a student.
Yeah.
And my teacher, Lorraine, I still remember her. She loved me. And so I just remember, as we got closer to my first communion, my dad got sicker and sicker and sicker. And it was on my 12th birthday. I visited him. After I got some money from my birthday, we went shopping, and then I went to visit my dad. When I saw him, he couldn't even talk. He was bloated, and he was not doing good. And, he basically told me to take care of my mom. And I promised him I would. And my first communion was 5 days away. Mm-hmm. And I just told him, just hang on, my first communion is on May 8th. I remember the night before my first communion, I prayed and I thanked God for keeping my dad alive. And I felt 100% in my heart that the next morning when I got my first communion, when I had my first prayer, my first wish, that my dad would be cured. I believed it 100%. Well, that night, the night before my first communion, after I prayed, a couple hours later, the phone rang, and then my grandma was in town for my first communion. I had a lot of family in town. They were staying with us in this 2-bedroom. And I could hear my grandma, my mom, everybody crying. And I knew that my dad passed away. And I laid in bed, and I just I lost all faith in God. I cursed God out. At that moment, I felt so numb. And I went to the first communion, and then they didn't tell us. They didn't want to tell us that my dad passed away. We went through the whole motions. I was in, with all my classmates. We were in our suits and stuff like that. And all the families all dressed up, and I was just done. I was so empty inside. Wow. I remember being in there and I was thinking like all these years, like this God that the teachers have talked about and this loving God. And I'm like, there's no way that a God would do that to somebody. So at that moment, I just lost all faith in God. And I then didn't really give a F at all anymore. I got in even more fights. Now looking for fights, you know what I mean? People getting into fights, I would get involved in the fights.
Yeah, and you had nothing to do with it, and you're like, I'm just going in there now.
We hung out in bad areas, and then we started having fights with other gangs or with gangs. So then it became like getting jumped, getting shot at. So then we started carrying. I remember when I was like young, maybe 13, we're obviously didn't have money, so we went to I forgot what it was called. It was before it was a Rite Aid, but we went in there and we stole like these little guns, these little pellet guns, and then we blacked out the red on it to carry the gun with us. Yeah. Which is so stupid now that, the worst thing.
Well, yeah, but again, when we're young at that time, you don't think. Yeah. Now you look back and you're like, what an idiot, but I get it.
Yeah, you show a fake gun and then somebody has a real gun, you're dead, right? But we would carry like fake guns because we didn't have real guns. And then eventually we got guns, Wow. So at the age of, my dad died at 12. By 14 years old, I was already carrying guns, and we had rival gangs, multiple different rival gangs. And at the age of 15, I was involved with a gang-related shooting. I didn't pull the trigger. My homeboy did, but I was in the car with him, and I had the option to take a plea bargain to snitch on him, but I chose not to snitch on him, so I did my time. I was a youth at the time. I was 15 years old, and I wasn't able to be charged as an adult. And I was very blessed at the time. My crime happened. I was arrested in November, but there was already a law that passed before I was arrested.
Earlier that year.
Yeah. That said that at the time, you had to be 16 years or older to be charged as an adult. Mm-hmm. And I was 15. So, but they had lowered that threshold down to 14. Uh-huh. But it didn't pass till January 1st.
Got it.
So I got arrested November 15th. Luckily, like a month and a half before that law came into
place.
Pass.
Yeah.
So luckily, I was charged as a juvenile. I went in there. I remember my first night. Once they do the strip search, and you put on their clothes. It's blue shirt, these blue pants.
Which again, when you were telling me this, I was like, what? There's no freaking way. Yeah. You did time?
Yeah.
So you were not jail, you were in prison.
Yeah, well, I started out in juvenile hall. That's where I went first. Mm-hmm. So I was 15. Eventually went to CYA, which is, I believe, worse than prison. It's prison for young offenders. Wow. Because in prison in California, 90%, maybe 95% of the stabbings were from the young gang members.
And at that time, let's be honest, it's the youth that they don't know any better. They're not thinking straight. At least older generations, we're still dumb as men at times, but we know a little bit better. Like, hey, try to keep the peace. Like, let's just try to be in harmony. Even though they're in their corner, I'm in my corner. Yeah. And in a younger age, it's like, no, heck no, he looked at me funny. Really, bro? We're gonna start a fight because he looked at you funny? And it's like, we would.
All the OGs, like the 50-year-olds that's done like 30, 40 years, 50, 60-year-olds, they're just chilling. They're not, they're doing their time. It was always the 21, 22-year-olds that were stabbing each other. So in California, there was a thing called the California Youth Authority. So they pulled 25 and under that had people that did a lot, that have a long time. They would start off in the California Youth Authority. Once they turn 25, they go to the California Department of Corrections or the CDC, so prison for older. So that's where, I ended up in, they call it gladiator school, whatever. For me, I don't think I was that afraid, like a lot of people get all freaked out. For me, I think I was more scared on the streets because people had guns, I was afraid of getting shot and killed or stabbed. I never was afraid of fighting ever. I think I always been able to hold my own, but I think I was really, I could take a beating. That was my thing.
There's a part in your mind that you're like, look, you come at me one-on-one, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But it's the, for me, I call it cheating. It's the knife, the gun. It's like, bro, of course you could pull a trigger and beat me. Anyone can really do that. But do it one-on-one. It's a totally different story. So I get you. What was happening to you in prison that like did you start kind of learning like, man, I've been messing up, or what happened in prison?
So
or in the juvenile
juvenile hall. So at that time, mine and my mom's relationship was pretty bad after my dad passed away. My mom was obviously grieving, and
let me just put the mic a little bit closer.
To give you some context, my mom, after my dad died, we didn't have a car, right? So he had a car, but it was a stick shift. My mom didn't know how to drive it. We had to sell it. My mom was taking a bus to school. She went to OCC to find a job, and then she became a teacher's aide. And so I was the kid getting in trouble, getting suspended from school all the time. Some teachers would stick up for me, and that's prevented me from getting kicked out of school because they wanted to expel me because I got suspended so many times. But they always, some of the teachers would stick up for me. His dad just died, he just acting out. So me and my mom didn't really have a good relationship. I just felt like a complete failure. She would say a lot of things to me, like, you're a loser, you're gonna end up dead, which is all true.
Back then, we're not receiving it in that way, right? Back then, you're kind of like getting a little bit upset with your mom, like, I'm your son. Why would you say these hurtful things to me? But now that you're a father, you're like, no, dude, she was looking out for me.
But there are things, even though so as a dad now, there are things I've learned from my mom, dad, good and bad. That
all of us. I'm not doing that. I am doing this, so I get it.
So, I didn't think, when we had visiting hours, I honestly did not think my mom was going to come visit me.
Wow.
Because there was a time that I got arrested when I was younger. We went to Ralph's, and I was a skateboarder, and we were skating and hungry, right? I didn't have money. And we would go in there, and we would grab, the samples, nuts. So that's I would grab a bunch of nuts and eat it. And we were leaving. They grabbed me, and then me and my friend, and they called the police, and then the police didn't arrest us, kind of scared us, whatever. And I kind of wasn't scared. And he's like, what's your problem? I would be shaking my boots if I was in your shoes. I'm like, I didn't, for what? Eating nuts? I was just a punk ass kid.
Smart ass.
So when they called my mom to come pick me up, she said, no, just take him to jail. and the cop wasn't going to take me to jail, for it. And she said, your mom wants me to take you to jail. And then I said,
then it kind of hit you. You were like, oh crap.
Yeah. Well, honestly, no.
Oh wow.
I was like,
you're like, all right, take me.
I mean, at that moment, what I'm going to do, I'll go, well, okay, that doesn't surprise me. She just want to pick me up. But my friend's mom signed to release me, from custody or whatever. So I remember that my mom didn't even pick me up when I wrestled in high school. Never went to my wrestling matches. So I just didn't feel loved by my mom. So I remember visiting hours, you know, all the kids, like, you know, all the inmates were in the common area. And when your visitors come, they call you up, and there's these benches where we eat chow, right? Where we eat lunch. They're like picnic benches, and they're all lined up. And all the parents are sit on one side, and then all the inmates sit on the other side. And I remember when they called me, and everybody, you don't go by your first name, everything's last name, right? So everybody's, so Huynh. And I looked like back, and then visitor, I was like, oh shit. And I saw my mom, and she was crying. Wow. And I was like, fuck. I was like, it hit you.
It hit you too.
Yeah, I was,
because you did not expect for her to be there.
Expecting her to come visit me, and I remember the sadness in her eyes, you know, and I felt so bad, but I couldn't cry. Right, I'm amongst my peers, so we sat there, and the thing is like during visiting, you're forced, like you're sitting across from each other, so it was such a blessing because we had visiting 3 times a week. I believe it was Monday, Wednesdays, and Sundays, or Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays. She went every single visit, 3 times a week.
Wow.
Every single, never missed a visit.
Wow.
And to make things even worse, like a couple months after me being locked up, they arrested my brother for the same crime as my crime. He wasn't even there, but they got him for conspiracy. So what was really messed up is my mom had to visit both of us. So they pulled us in, they pulled me to his unit. And it was cool for me because now I got to see my brother for an hour and my mom. So that happened for a couple of years, actually for only a year, because when my brother, he's my older brother, so he was 17. Once he turned 18, they shipped him to the county. So then it was hard for me and my mom, because my brother wasn't there anymore. Because I would never see my brother in the yard. I was on security risk, so I wasn't like a normal inmate. Normal inmates got to go out in the yard and play in the sun or the grass or whatever, play basketball, whatever. I was on security risk because I was facing so much time. I was a flight risk to escape. So I was during my, I forgot what they called it, but 1 hour activity, I was in a cage basically. So I didn't get to go into the field and stuff like that. So I never got to see my brother, except for visits. But the cool thing was during the visits, I even mended my relationship with my mom. And then I was still getting into fights. But so in prison, while you're locked up, everything is race, right? You hang out with your own races, and then every race,
whether you like it or not, like it just kind of happens.
Yeah, everybody's segregated. But you have to respect the other races. There's definitely no disrespect. There's definitely no racism, because then that's when riots happen, right? So every race has kind of like a house mouse or whatever, shot caller. So for the Asians, I was that guy, you know.
Oh, wow.
And it was my job to any other Asians coming in to my unit, giving them the rundown on how everything works, how we program, what the rules are in this unit. For example, you don't share food with other races. You don't, if somebody doesn't want their milk, you know, you can't take their milk, even though they didn't drink from it, but their milk carton, can't take it. You don't give away. You don't gamble. You don't do these things, right? Don't do drugs. So that was the thing. And then somebody misbehaves or doesn't follow the rules, or somebody. So let's say one of the Vietnamese homies
misrepresented you guys.
Yeah,
you would be the one paying for
to discipline him, right? Because we don't want a race war. What if he said something disrespectful or did something disrespectful?
Yeah,
we don't want a race war. So then I would have to beat his ass. So I would jump into his room, or we would jump into the mop room or the linen room, and I would just teach him a lesson. You know what I mean?
My goodness. See, again, those. But that's what I loved when I was hearing your story, because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, where God put us in to where God has us now. And I love your vulnerability. Like I'm listening to your story, Tommy, and I'm like, you know, I never thought my mom would come, but she was here every visit. She was here. And as I'm hearing you, I'm like also praying, and I'm like, God, show him like you were moving. Yeah. You were showing like at one point you felt like my mom didn't even love me, but God was doing something in your heart because by your mom showing up, you started feeling like, no, she does love me. And it starts moving something inside of you, whether you like it or you don't. It starts moving something inside of you. Man, I'm happy I get to spend 1 hour with my brother and my mom. You know, people were looking at me for this and I had to teach them a lesson, but it's like everything is showing you to the process of like where you're at now, which is again, why I'm like, you are going to be able to reach out to other people that are in similar situations. To say, hey, I know what it feels like to be behind bars. I know what it feels like to be disciplined, to be in trouble with the law. I've never really been in trouble with the law. I mean, I'm talking about like the most I've ever been is probably like a stop ticket or a speeding ticket. Like that's as far as it goes. And those scare the heck out of me, bro. Like if I swear like I'm doing something super wrong. Yeah. So like for me, if the cop would have had me at the store and told me you're going to go under arrest, I would have been like shaking, like you got to be kidding me. Yeah. But for you, it wasn't because of the different backgrounds. But it's like I love that story, or love hearing more and more of the story, because it's like, whoa, dude, like God has a purpose for you. God has a purpose for me, you know. And how long were you in there for?
So I did 5 years.
Okay.
And
did they feel like 5 long years, or did they feel kind of fast?
Well, I mean, that's like those are the days, right? 15 to 20. I went in at 15, got out at 20. So think about your high school years. Like I lost all of that, right? So you change a lot as a person in there, but I would never take it back. Like I changed so much for the good. I remember one time I was just tired of being on lockdown, and I was in a hole. Basically, I signed up for Bible study to get out of the room. I didn't really want to go to Bible study to study the Bible for sure. I went there to get out of my room, and it was a Protestant Bible study. But, you know, and to be honest with you, it wasn't what they were trying to teach me in the Bible. What I got from it was the love that I felt from them. They truly, like, week to week, and I think it took a while for me to feel that love that I could sense. It was the love from God through them to me, that pulled me back to open my heart back up with my relationship with God, you know, and softened me, because I was kind of like just hard, I guess, and just didn't really give enough, you know.
100%. I mean, Tommy, you went through a rough life. Yeah. Like you didn't have your father. Yeah. You felt that your mom didn't love you. Yeah. You know, I get it. Yeah. So that's why, like I'm telling you, man, like I'm not saying this to butter you up. I'm saying it from the bottom of my heart. When you told me your story, I'm like, bro, you have such a great story, because the life that you're living right now, like, from an outsider in, and I didn't even know about your YouTube channel, that you're a biker, that you like skating. I didn't know these things, but now I'm just like, dude, it's like, yes, life is about being successful and making money and beautiful, but don't lose who you are. And I honestly, I'm admiring your story. I'm admiring you, and you're giving me hope. Like, dude, you know, we can go through rough moments. I'm going currently through a rough moment, but it's going to be fine. Yeah. And you're like living proof of that. And it's like, dude, so, and I agree with you. Like my story's a little similar to yours. I wasn't obviously in jail, but I started going to church just because I wanted to hang out with my cousins. Yeah. I didn't care about God. Right, I just knew they were going to church. Yeah. So part of me is like, well, I just want to kick it with my cousins. Right. But little did I know, I went to go kick it with my cousins, and God started knocking on my heart little by little, which that's what was happening with you.
Totally. I just remember, you know, just changing and just there's so many blessings. And I still today believe that the most humble time, the closest I've ever felt to God, where I felt the most rich in my life was when I had absolutely nothing, when I was locked up, you know.
Love it. And love it.
I prayed, you know, so I felt like, and I talked to you about this before the restaurant, like I always felt like a hypocrite praying, like, and asking God, because here I was, like, cursed God out when my dad died. Now I'm locked up. Like, what am I going to do now? Go back and ask God to get me out of here? Like, I refuse to do that. That was me. I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
It was pride.
Yeah. And eventually, you know what? Like, one of the volunteers said, okay, I get you don't want to ask God. And God is not a wishing well either. Like your prayer should be about thanking God. Thank God for what you have. So I remember my nights, my prayers would be super long. Like, and I would be thanking God for the fact that I had 2 feet and 10 fingers. And because I would see people that were coming in, like from the streets that got shot, that might be handicapped, they're on a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I would see this and I would be blessed that, hey, like I could still work out. I have 2 legs. So there were things that I was truly, and I had my mom here visiting me every week. You know, there were other the homies that had nobody visiting them at all, and I felt bad, you know. Damn. And so that was the thing.
That's why I brought you, Tommy. That's why I'm telling you your story's amazing, because even right now, many viewers and listeners, we're choosing to just stay in the sadness of poor me, poor me. It's like, guys, you have your 2 legs, you have your 2 arms, you have your fingers, you're intact, you have health. Like, we really think because we lost that job, we had to lose the house, we went on foreclosure, I lost everything, that the life is over. And like you're hitting it right on the head. I felt the most richest when I had nothing.
I had God, and that I didn't have the material stuff, and material stuff I didn't care about it, right? Mm-hmm. And the craziest thing is I had a job in there that was I don't forget what it's called, but it's a program where they're trying to help rehabilitate, which is big on rehabilitation. And unfortunately, this program's gone. He
even does it, guys, at his restaurant. Yeah. I love that about when he told me that. I was like, man, that's so beautiful. Like, because he experienced in his life, you got to give people second chances, third chances, fourth chances. And he's doing that in his restaurant, guys. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I as you know, I hired a lot of guys from prison to work at my restaurant, give them a second chance. A lot of them had experience from the kitchen. They would get out here, they would not be able to get a job, you know, and it's messed up. And I get it. For a lot of people that own businesses,
fear behind it.
Yeah, they don't want to hire somebody with a record. Like you have to do a background check, and most employers see that somebody's been locked up, they're not going to hire you, you know. And it was hard for me when I got out, to be honest with you, to get a job. So I remember that. So I had a lot of jobs, and there were times where I had 3 jobs. I worked at Bally's Total Fitness, Levitt's Furniture. I was moving furniture in a warehouse, and I was working at Gallup. So I had 3 jobs. I was trying to help my mom pay rent, and I was trying to pay for my brother's attorney. So I was struggling, you know, for a while. And I had the opportunity to go back, do some illegal stuff, because I had this guy that I was locked up with. He got out, and he's Chinese mafia, offered me basically Orange County to run the drugs, ecstasy in Orange County. And I refused to do it. And he was making, probably more in a day than I was making in a month.
100, yeah. And tell me, like, I love it because it's like, what kind of temptation is that? Of course, your body naturally is going to say, I want to get into that, right? But it's like, it takes a real person to be like, man, as much as that can be tempting, I got to stay true to whatever path God has me in.
Because those last, I would say 3 years when I was locked up, that's when I met in my relationship with God. The first year, I still got into fights, still being a knucklehead. By the second year, I started getting my shit together. And then by the third year, I would say at that moment, you know, and the cool thing is I had a lot of respect. I gave respect. And so in there, like, I still have some of the, I would say, the most honest, most real people that I know in my life have been guys that I met in there.
Yeah, wow.
You know what I mean? They've just had bad circumstances, or they made really stupid decisions like myself. So I remember being in there. We'd always say we're never going to come back, but I was 100% like, I'm never going to come back. I tell God, I pray to God, like, whenever you're ready for me to get out, I'll go out there and I'm gonna make you proud. But I would never ask God to get me out. I would never say, I'll have a board hearing coming up.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be like, hey,
I remember when you were sharing that with me, that you would pray for others, but you wouldn't really pray for yourself. You still had that barrier of, or I don't know if you still do till today, to be quite frank, but you still have kind of like that barrier of pride of like, well, you didn't answer my first prayer, which I was told by my dad it would be my wish. You were supposed to heal him. And I get that, bro. Yeah. I get that. Like when you said I cursed God, I'm like, I've cursed him too. Yeah. I tell people straight up, let's be real, guys. Like I've said bad words to God. I repent and I'm so sorry. And I tell him, dude, I was so wrong for what I did. But we're humans. Like we get upset and the first one we blame, it's like, why did you do that? Yep. So I get it.
Yeah. I feel like, I would just pray to God, like whatever happens, like, of course I want to go home, but if I get shot down, just give me the strength to see the reason why, the serenity prayer is my favorite prayer. And it's really changed my life. But, I think when I was locked up, I would practice my signature. I always knew that I would be somebody when I got out. I just need the opportunity. And then eventually getting out here, I basically had to beg the regional manager at a bank. I was working at a lot of dead-end jobs, and I worked at the cable company, Comcast Cable. I was their top producer there. And I would go for a promotion for the sales manager, and I would literally be top producer like 11 out of 12 months out of the year. Like I was always top producer. If I was number one, I was number two for that 1 month. And when I went for the sales position, like everybody's like, dude, you got it, man. You're like the top salesperson. Of course they're going to hire you.
It's a no-brainer.
No, they didn't hire me. They hired some idiot. You know what I mean? And that person was like at the bottom because he kissed ass. And that really upset me. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this is, I felt it was my background. It has to be the fact that I was, they must be racist or they must be prejudiced because of my history of being incarcerated. Yep. They're not giving me this management position, whatever. So, I'm like, so I finally got a job, a real job at the bank. I just said, listen, give me minimum wage. Like before that, they looked, I gave them my resume. They looked at it. They never called me. And my neighbor worked there. And I found out when his regional manager was going to be at the office. Tell me, I'm going to call out sick. I'm going to come in a suit and I'm going to force an interview.
Yeah, you're going to present yourself.
And that's what I did. Like I guess he saw the hunger. I mean, I begged her, I go, just give me minimum wage. Give me 3 months. And if I'm not your top producer, fire me. But I just need 3 months. I'll be your top producer. I believed it. I knew I would. Every job I held, I was their top producer. At Bally's, Total Fitness, I started as the guy cleaning the weights, and then they hired me as a sales guy, and I was their top sales guy. And so at the mortgage company, at the bank, I did really well. I became the top producer. I was like number 1 at the company at our branch, then number 1 in the state, and then number 7 in the nation shortly after. And then I got recruited to work for a broker. I started making a lot of money, and then eventually opened up my own business. And as a kid, I promised my mom I told my mom that I was going to open up a restaurant for her. And so when I was more financially able, I ended up doing that, open up a restaurant for my mom. And it was for my mom, and my aunt was her sister who had a stage 4 cancer. So that's kind of like what pushed me to do it then and there, because she didn't have long to live. So I told my wife, we need to open up the restaurant before my aunt passes. Because the restaurant is all my family recipes. So we make exactly the way my mom my aunt cooks at home.
So delicious, guys. Right now, you mentioned like you went so far along. We haven't even brought in, your love life, how you met your wife and all this stuff. But we'll get to that at another time, because I still love the fact of what you're mentioning in your personal story. I agree with you when you're saying that, I'll let you finish your story, but I do want to confirm with the audience, with the listeners, amazing food, guys. I mean, I'm talking about, it is very delicious. Like, my mouth's getting watery right now mentioning it, because I'm not just saying it to butter him up. I'm saying it because it feels home cooked. It feels so organic. It feels very delicious. It feels like there's an atmosphere in your restaurant, Tommy. It's not just your food. It's an atmosphere of like, I'm home. Like, I've gone by myself, and it's just like, I could be sad. I can be emotional. I'm very in tune to my feelings. But when I'm eating your pho, when I'm eating a spring roll, it's doing something to me where it's like, I'm sad, but I'm feeling better just because of the warmth of your food. And I share this because it's like, I don't know the technological theory term, but I just know that there's something to do with the presence of God, that it transcends, because, bro, you guys are busy.
Yeah.
And if you guys were not a good restaurant, if the atmosphere was not good, like, you and your wife do something to that place that it's amazing, man.
Yeah. And we were so blessed. Like, during COVID, we thought we were going to lose it, or we put our life savings in it, and we've heard like what you said about it so many times.
Wow.
And I really appreciate it. And I feel is the love that we put into the food, because it comes from it comes from my family, right? It's recipes. But I also feel like, I've heard so many times people refer to the restaurant as church, because I try to give people second chances, because I got a second chance, right? So I hired a lot of people from prison. A lot of the staff that we hire come from broken homes. I mean, we're in Yorba Linda, so let's be real. I mean, most people out here are doing well for themselves.
Correct.
A lot of very rich people. We do have a lot of staff where the parents are very well off, and they have bratty kids, and they beg us to hire their kids. And we hire some of them, and kind of, they said, hey, be strict, yell at them, whatever you need to do, straighten them out for us. You know what I mean? And we do. Eileen's not shy about that. Like, we treat them like our kids. You know what I mean?
I know you guys do.
But we also have guys there that come from a broken home, raised by their grandparents.
Yeah. And I used to work in staffing. I'm trying to get back into that field, quite frankly. And I've experienced it. I've seen where, and this is not just Yorba Linda, this is just nationwide, where I believe, I heard someone say this, Tommy, and I thought this was amazing. Tough times make hard men make easy times make weak men make hard times. So I grew up in a home where my dad had it tough. He made it easier on me. I'm making it super easy on my kids, where I'm getting a little bit scared that if I make it too easy, are they going to blow whatever we're going to leave them when we pass, and then create hard times again? Because we are raising a generation where they do feel a little bit entitled. Like, don't be that mean to me, or don't be like this, but then the ones that have it a little bit more rougher, those are like the hard workers. Those are the ones that do show up and get there on time and all this stuff. So there's a little bit of everything right now. But I get what you're saying, like, in the sense of like, yeah, like it's a little tough right now. It's hard to find the right help at times.
For sure. For me, like, of all the accomplishments that I have in my life, by far my biggest accomplishment is being a dad. And I'm raising two amazing kids. My wife's been awesome, of course, but when our first son, our oldest, my son, she felt that was too strict on him, And to me, I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea what I went through. But I wanted him to have responsibilities. Like, and it was like little things like washing the dishes when he was like 6 years old and taking out the trash and stuff like that. And
same,
her dad, my father-in-law, would get like upset.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah, taking out the trash. He's too young for that. And he would do that, and I would, you know, and it would get. I would pull my son aside, you know, when he was older, while he was in high school. And he would get upset because he worked with me in the mortgage company, and he you know, we paid him obviously.
Yeah.
But he worked, and he would call and say, "Hey, all my friends are going to the beach after school. Can I go?" I go, "No, you shouldn't even call me. You know better. Just come into the office, finish your job, and when you're done, you can go hang out with them." And they're like, "Well, they're all leaving from school." I was like, "Well, they don't have jobs. You do." Mm-hmm. And he would get so pissed at me. And I would tell him, "Listen, one day you're going to understand.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be above and beyond your peers. Mm-hmm. And when you, and you're going to realize that when you're older. Right now, you hate my guts for this, but it's for your own good."
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
And
I agree. We are made to be their friends, but we're parents first.
Yeah.
We're parents first, not friends first.
It's hard. Like, trust me. It's like, I felt bad, but I knew,
correct.
I don't want him to be like, if he hurt himself or whatever, he's sick. That is an excuse, but not going to beach with your friend. To me, no. I would never do that. I would never call, even my dead end job. I never call out sick. I used to go in hungover, like party that night. You know, 2-3 hours of sleep. I still showed up.
Still show up, and on time.
On time. Never ever was late. You know. I mountain bike, hurt myself. I'm limping at work. I'm still there. You know what I mean? At the restaurant. So that's the thing. Like, I kind of wanted to instill that. My son now is in dental school. You know, I'm super proud of him. This is something that he had goals since he was younger. And I would see, and then his first year in dental school, top of the class, he was president and ended up getting a full ride scholarship. After his first year, he did so well, they offered him a scholarship. So his last 3 years are being paid for. So
beautiful.
I'm like just super proud of him. My daughter's a straight A student. All her classes are AP, IB, or honors. She's doing great, and I know she's going to be, you know, somebody. You know, and then again, I don't care what they do as far as what for a living, but it's just them as people. Like, I hear all the time because they both work at the restaurant. Well, my son worked at the restaurant before he moved to college.
I saw him the other day. Yeah. He was there, and when I saw him, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's a spitting image of Tommy. Like, it's just the same thing, man.
Thank you.
I know you were mentioning right now, you know, you're very blessed with where your children are at and what they're doing. You know, your son, your daughter. Tommy, did you ever think a couple years ago when you were going through the you know, trying to learn not learn, but the things that you were living in the past, like, can you have imagined talking to an 18-year-old Tommy and someone telling Tommy, by the age of whatever age you're at right now, because I don't know your age, but whatever age you're in, you're going to have a successful restaurant, a beautiful wife, beautiful children, successful children. I'm pretty sure if someone would have told Tommy that at 18, he'll be like, you're nuts, bro. Yeah. Like, I'm destined to failure.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, definitely 18. At that moment, at that age, I was already had my goals set high. 15, 16, 17, definitely, like, I would laugh if somebody said that to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think at around 18, that was when my relationship with God, God had already showed me, like, what he can do, I think. And I had so much faith in God at that age.
So to kind of bring it full circle, do you believe that it was when you started having a more intimate, more intentional relationship with God when you felt like your life was turning around?
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like God has always been there. God is always there for all of us. Is if it's when we open our hearts to God to let him in. And I don't want to get this kind of twisted where if you're not doing good financially, you don't have God. And if you're and if you have God, you're gonna do good. Like financially has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what is more important to me than my house, my car, anything materialistic is my relationship with my kids, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with God, my relationship with my family.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
That's why I feel richest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The things that money cannot buy.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people, a lot of very wealthy people that are empty inside, you know.
My pastor one time said, Tommy, he said, I know people so poor, so poor in this world that all they have is money. Yeah. Think about that quote. That, they have money, but they're still poor. They're not happy. Yeah. You know, and it's what I love. And when you were telling me your story, I was like, dude, and I know there's more. Like, I know we can go into details about, like, give me what happened at 16. Give me what happened at 15, which we don't have all that time to go into those things deep. But what I wanted to show the viewers and the audience is like, bro, you can go through ups and downs and valleys, but there is hope as long as there's a relationship with God and God starts teaching you the value of what really is important. Because something eventually clicked in you that said, it's not about the money. It's about the internal riches, the love, the relationship with my wife, the relationship with my kids. What does it matter that you leave your kids $2 million, $5 million, $20 million each if they never had a dad that was present? But now I'm kind of switching, side note, you know, because you have shared a lot about your story and the success of where you're at now. But now I kind of want to just touch very briefly, not too long, but your YouTube channel, Tommy. I've been seeing some of the stuff, and my goodness, the last video where your buddy fell off the cliff, I was like, no way, bro. I would be freaking out on my cell phone, calling 911. Thank God I saw the rest of throughout the video, and he was fine. Yeah. Like, he's walking away from falling over a hill about 130 feet.
Yeah, 120 feet.
Sheesh.
That honestly is a miracle, God.
Yeah.
And we both agreed to it. And I don't know if you hear it, but while he's like, because I have his GoPro on that video, as on his GoPro footage as well.
On the video,
sliding, he's praying. Yeah. Lord, please, no, Lord, please, God.
Yeah, I hear him.
He's praying, and he's very religious.
And you can tell he's like trying to grab onto anything.
He literally fell 100 feet down. I fell down that cliff before. Wow. Not all the way down. I fell 20 feet. I messed my back up pretty bad. I bruised my liver. I was urinating blood for 5 days. Wow. So that's particular trail is pretty dangerous.
You guys keep going at it.
Yeah, I know. I think it's that adrenaline. Like, I still have that in me. I still chase that adrenaline, you know. But I think I
love it because you know who you are. You're like, dude, if I don't do this, I'm gonna be so depressed. Like, not doing this. Like, I have to. So, your YouTube channel. What's the name of your YouTube channel? Which I'm gonna add there for you guys.
Yeah. So it's just my name. It's just Tommy Huynh, T-Rex MTB. That's my handle on Instagram as well.
Beautiful. And I'll put all that information on the screen for you guys to see so you guys can look at his Instagram. I'll have the Monarch information as well if you guys want to take a visit. Let them know that the Mac Effect sent you guys. Please let them know that, okay? Also, his YouTube channel for any bikers out there. That's what it is. He doesn't do any other type of videos. But I mean, if he does, then that would be his projection as far as where God is taking him. But right now, it's a lot of biking. I love it. I don't 100% know much of it, but he even tells you his personal opinion on what camera he likes using better when he's riding, the type of bike, which is really interesting. You were just doing it to be funny. And bro, your YouTube channel is pretty successful.
Yeah, it grew organically.
Yeah,
it grew up or the mountain biking community is kind of small, but it's cool. I have a lot of sponsors, a lot of support, which is crazy. Never thought, you know what I mean, I'd be doing it.
Oh, shit. Fuck, we gotta go get him.
To me, it's fun. That whole thing, I don't make money off of it. I get very little bit of money, you know, from that. To me, it's a hobby. It's for my sanity.
Yeah.
Get my adrenaline out.
When did you learn you like biking, mountain biking?
It's funny. So I broke my knee. I snapped it like this, tore my ACL, MCL, snowboarding. I've always been an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
I always tell my wife it's better than gambling. I actually had a bad gambling experience, bad gambling problem before I met her. And then I don't do drugs, but I feel like if I got into drugs, I'd be a crackhead on the street.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I would just go all the way, you know, OD. So I know myself. I chased this high, so I couldn't snowboard anymore after I broke my knee. I do it. I still snowboard, but more fun. But I just got into mountain biking, and then just became a thing. And then you know, with the channel, it just kind of grew. I never intended to have a mountain biking channel.
Yeah.
It grew. I mean, I posted stuff, other parts of my life I had some health issues, and you know, fun fact, I only eat 1 meal a day. I was heavy at one point in my life. I had a lot of gut issues. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, or beginning stages of Hashimoto's disease. So they wanted to medicate me. And I don't take medicine at all. I don't take Tylenol, Advil, nothing. So I went online, did some research. I found out about fasting, intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Getting rid of gluten. I cut carbs. So I changed my diet. I lost a ton of weight. And
yeah, you were at what was your highest?
192 or 193 or something. That was my highest.
Oh my God, your highest is my goal.
Yeah, but I'm 5'5". I'm short. You know, 5'5" shouldn't be 190 pounds. So I got down to 145. You know, at a very short period of time. I'm now about one. I don't even weigh myself. I don't really. I try not to look at the scale.
Yeah, as long as I feel like as for me, men.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at the scale either, but if I like the way I look in the mirror, then I'm content with that.
Yeah, that's all. It's a lifestyle for me. It's not a diet. I eat 1 meal a day. When I did it.
You've been doing this for how long?
It's been 8 years.
1 meal a day for 8 years?
Yeah, 8 years.
Shit.
Yeah.
And what do you eat?
I eat 5 days of the week at the restaurant. So I eat a salad, a giant salad. I eat a lot of food.
Okay.
I eat a salad and a bowl of pho, but my pho is huge. It's probably two bowls, you know. And then the 2 days that were closed.
Chicken, beef, or
so
what?
beef pho.
Okay.
9 out of 10 times is beef pho.
Okay.
And then the salad I have it with chicken. So chicken salad. And then the days we're closed, I go out and I try
no soda, no.
No, definitely no soda. I don't rarely ever drink alcohol anymore. Maybe once, twice a year.
Okay.
Somebody's wedding, somebody's birthday, something like that.
Like a shot, and that's about it.
Yeah, I don't really do carbs. I do that so the days that we're closed, we go out and eat, try to support small business. I don't have a lot of options at that point, so I try not to eat carbs. But if I do, it's
very minimal.
Yeah, it's very minimal.
And it's okay, dude.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But I could tell, I could just tell that you're someone that's very strict on yourself. Yeah. So for you, it's like, oh, I don't want the carbs.
Yeah.
But then you're just like, okay, fine. And I'm sure other people are like, dude, just relax. It's okay, you know, but I get what you're saying.
Well, it's not, I don't eat carbs because I'm trying to like watch my figure. I don't eat carbs because my health. Like, so when I have gluten, I physically feel ill.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just my body doesn't do well.
Process it.
Yeah.
Okay.
With gluten.
Okay. So nice. And well, I mean, that's beautiful. Anything else off the top of your head that maybe you want to share that we didn't hit, that you're like, man, I forgot to mention this, or I want to make it clear that I'm not this anymore, or anything that's in your head that maybe we didn't cover?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, I think when you first approached me about this, I think my first initial reaction, because obviously, you know, I've seen you, talked to you many times, and there's only been a handful, very, very small amount of customers that know about my background. It's not something I share, not something that I'm proud of.
Absolutely.
I am somewhat ashamed of my past, of course, but I feel very blessed that God has changed me. But the reason why I'm here is to share my stories, to hope that I can reach somebody out there, somebody from your audience that may be struggling with the relationship with God, know somebody that's struggling with their relationship with God, or just having a tough time in life, to know that God is always going to be there. You just need to open your heart up to God.
Yeah, I love it.
And
I love it.
If you can understand, my belief of God is He was a very loving God, and it was never about anything but caring and taking care of people, and so to me, I'm not religious. I don't quote anything from the Bible. I grew up in the Catholic Church, but to me, God is God, right?
It's love and respect for everyone. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So, and I just feel like having God in your heart just makes your life so much better.
And there is going to be hope, Tommy. I know there's listeners. I know there's viewers. I always share it with you guys. If there's questions that you have for Tommy, questions that you have for me, please put them in the comments section. Tell us what's impacting your life. If there's something that his story that you're like, bro, that blessed me that he's sharing this, please comment it so that I can share it with him too as well, and let him know, it's good for all of us to just understand each other and say, hey, we're human beings. We make mistakes. Hopefully we're learning from them. Hopefully we're growing and we're developing. Isn't that what I say in all of my previous episodes, guys? That's the reason why I made the Mac Effect, so that we can grow, we can develop, and we can become better. Because when you become better, the people around you become better. Your relationship with your wife becomes better. With your kids become better. Your business becomes better because now you're pouring into that love. Like you mentioned, your restaurant's a church. I 100% agree. You're breaking bread. You're eating. You're in a community. Like I would have never thought I would have had the owner when I first moved here. I would have never thought I would have had the owner of Monarch here sharing his story. But the reality is, it's like we all go through stuff, and God finds a way. He works all things for his good. And I really appreciate you coming out and sharing your story, man.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys had a great time. Again, any questions, comments, please send it to us. But I loved it. I know I have a lot more great episodes coming your way. And as I always say, guys, thank you for the support and the love. We're going to keep growing. And I'll see you guys next week for another great episode. The Mac Effect out. Peace, guys.